printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive.
All right, Woodman, what is up, brother? What's going
Airborne.
on? All right, we got some people joining in. Got some new queue updates we're going to jump into here real quick before this all gets kicked off. We got Woodman in tonight. We're going to be going over the part 2 of the Chaos. It's going to be awesome.
Part 2 of the circus there.
The circus. Get your popcorn and your cotton candy ready, and your popcorn.
Oh yeah.
You got it.
We're ready over here.
All right, so real quick here, a couple of new queue updates. This came at I guess right there at 4:23 p.m. Be ready. 3350 in the series. Be ready. And then it looks like you have some future comms, pre_stage, ELE_Y, pre_stage, SEC, security_Y, pre-stage directory, pre_stage cap_. And the brackets on ready. I'm not sure what that means. So there we go. The last one at 4:34, Forgotten Country, Patriots Fight. We'll see here. A little tired over there, Woodman.
Yeah.
Long day. I hear you. So, for God and Country, Patriots Fight. Be ready. All right, so a couple new, and I don't know if this is, or how that ever updated. Let's see here. Looking at our new vMixed social thing here, overlay 1. on. I didn't have it on. There it is. "15 seconds. Rotation." Okay, there it is. So, let me get that off our screen. Yeah, and it keeps coming up. I'm going to put this at the top. So now you're getting the messages, aren't you there, Woodman?
Yeah. Ronald Carlson.
Trying to find a good spot for it. There. I had it up and over here. Oops.
Jacqueline Knack.
Hi, Mike and Woodman.
I don't know where you're going to be able to put that and still keep it out of the way.
I'm going to maybe find another one. Well, let me see if I can get that to go away, but I think this likes to stay up every time a new message comes up, it pops up. No, maybe. Yeah, see? It comes up.
Yeah.
So, I can do this.
Oh, yeah.
Whoops.
Hey, y'all.
All right, it's about the best I can do for right now. All right, let me go here. Had all this set up real nice. Now we're going to go here and we're going to do...
She has the challenge of both introducing herself to the American public for folks who haven't seen her, and also, you know, putting that substance out there to go toe-to-toe with an Elizabeth Warren. But I think that, you know, she's somebody that you have to see for yourself in order to really judge. You can't go based on what other people say. I hadn't met her until...
So it looks like they're setting up now, or they're getting close to being ready. And again, folks, we will not, or we don't have to, you know, do it all. Gets to be the headache. And of
Yes,
course
it does.
Yes, we got your kind of highlighted chats up here, one for one. Kind of highlights them, slows it down a little bit. Right now, we got crypto on happy joy, and you know, some of these names, no pun intended, they're hilarious. So, but now you can see them a little bit here and there, Woodman.
That's fantastic, brother.
Yes. We make dreams come true over here at the Patriot Hour for lots of people.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's really, I can't wait for this evening's circus. This is the best one of the two, I believe.
Yeah, they kind of held everyone back. Did you get to see last night's a little bit now, did you?
Yeah, well, I fell asleep part of it, and then I had to watch it today. But it's so comical. I mean, it's just, who are they kidding? Who are these people
It's a lot of the same old
you know?
rhetoric, isn't it? It's a lot of the same old rhetoric. Before we get started here,
I
I'd
like
like to say thanks to everyone for joining in. We got about close to 300 joining. I see a couple of the mods here real quick. Simone Ellis, welcome. Thank you for joining. I don't know if I saw any other mods or not, but I saw. And other than that, thanks to all the Patriots joining in. It's always a pleasure. And thanks for, please share right now, maybe with all your social media here before we get started. You can kind of jump out and go share it with a couple of your social medias. That way we get the most amount of eyes on this event and maybe in the chat room. But other than that, enjoy. Go ahead, Woodman. Sorry.
This is going to be really fantastic. This is what a circus, and I'm proud that I can't remember who said it in their debate last night, but the president and his chicken hawks. You know what I mean? My gosh.
Yeah.
Gee whiz.
That's
Yeah, some of those terms they used last night just unbelievable.
So tonight is about Trump. All right, guys,
Be right
thank you
back.
so
Need
much.
something to
And
drink.
Lee, this is the moment we've been
That's
waiting
what
for.
somebody
We're
said.
about to
Get
start
me something.
candidates. Take
On
the
Thursday.
stage. Stay right
I got
there
a,
because
All right.
we're headed
a little cold
straight
beverage right here for
to
Patriot Hour. And, yep. And then I got a water. Got a water.
Water.
I don't have no snacks.
Water,
I'm not
water.
gonna get snacks. Not sure.
Yeah. Oh, I just can't wait. This is hilarious.
It's gonna be a good time, folks. Sit back and buckle up. Here we are. We don't need to see all that stuff. Lester Holt.
Good evening, I'm Savannah Guthrie.
Mr. Holster.
I wonder what these guys are going to say. It's going to be free from now on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thought that ended.
Oh, man.
So who we got up
I don't
there?
even like watching Maddo, really. Gee whiz, man.
There's your guy there, Woodman O'Biden.
Yeah, Betty. Yeah, Betty.
And Woodman Buddy.
Yeah.
Didn't you save his life once or something?
Yeah, right.
I think Woodman has stories from back in the 80s. You know, we'll get into them another time. I'm joking.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Saved his life once, man. Bullet for him, didn't you?
Yeah, you said that right.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Good evening once again. Welcome to the candidates and our spirited audience here tonight in the Arts Center and across America tonight. We continue this spirited debate about the future of the country, how to tackle our most pressing problems, and getting to the heart of the biggest issues in this Democratic primary.
Tonight we're going to talk about health care, immigration. We're also going to dive into the economy, jobs, climate change as well.
And some quick rules of the road before we begin, and they may sound familiar. 20 candidates qualified for this first debate. As we said, we heard from 10 last night, and we'll hear from 10 more tonight. The breakdown for each night was selected at random. The candidates will have 60 seconds to answer, 30 seconds for any follow-up.
And because of the large field of candidates, not every person is going to be able to weigh in on every topic. But over the course of the next 2 hours, we will hear from everyone.
And we love our audience, but we'd like to ask them to keep their reactions to a minimum, and we're not going to hold back in making sure the candidates stick to time. So with that business taken care of, let's get to it. And we're going to start today with Senator Sanders. Good evening to you. You've called for big new government benefits like universal health care and free college. In a recent interview, you said you suspected that Americans would be, quote, delighted to pay more taxes for things like that. My question to you is, will taxes go up for the middle class in a Sanders administration? And if so, how do you sell that to voters?
Well, you're quite right. We have a new vision for America. And at a time when we have 3 people in this country owning more wealth than the bottom half of America, while 500,000 people are sleeping out on the streets today, we think it is time for change, real change. And by that I mean that health care, in my view, is a human right. And we have got to pass a Medicare for all single-payer system. Under that system, by the way, vast majority of the people in this country will be paying significantly less for health care than they are right now. I believe that education is the future for this country. And that is why I believe that we must make public colleges and universities tuition free and eliminate student debt. And we do that by placing a tax on Wall Street. Every proposal that I have brought forth is fully paid for.
Senator Sanders, I'll give you 10 seconds just to answer the very direct question. Will you raise taxes for the middle class in a Sanders administration?
People who have health care under Medicare for all will have no premiums, no deductibles, no co-payments, no out-of-pocket expenses. Yes, they will pay more in taxes, but less in health care for what they get.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Bennett, we're going to get to everybody, I promise, but let me just, Senator Biden, promise everybody's going to get in here, promise.
Here it starts.
Vice President Biden.
Yep.
Senator Sanders, as you know, has been calling for a revolution. Recently, in remarks to a group of wealthy donors, as you were speaking about the problem of income inequality in this country, you said, we shouldn't, quote, demonize the rich. You said, nobody has to be punished. No one's standard of living would change. Nothing would fundamentally change. What did you mean by that?
What I meant by that is, look, Donald Trump thinks Wall Street built America. Ordinary middle-class Americans build America.
There's the first Donald Trump.
He said, Joe, a job is about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's being able to look your kid in the eye and say everything's going to be okay. Too many people who are in the middle class and poor have had the bottom fall out under this proposal. What I'm saying is that we've got to be straightforward. We have to make sure we understand that to return dignity to the middle class, they have to have insurance that is covered and they can afford it. They have to make sure that we're in a situation where there's continuing education and they're able to pay for it. And they have to make sure that they're able to breathe air that is clean and they have water that they can drink. Look, Donald Trump has put us in a horrible situation. We do have enormous income inequality. And the one thing I agree on is we can make massive cuts in the $1.6 trillion in tax loopholes out there, and I would be going about eliminating Donald Trump's tax cuts for the wealthy.
Vice President Biden, thank you. Senator Harris. There's a lot of talk in this primary about new government benefits, such as student loan cancellation, free college, health care, and more. Do you think that Democrats have a responsibility to explain how they will pay for every proposal they make along those lines?
Well, let me tell you something. I hear that question, but where was that question when the Republicans and Donald Trump passed a tax bill that benefits the top 1% and the biggest corporations in this country, contributing at least $1 trillion to the debt of America, which middle-class families will pay for one way or another? Working families need support and need to be lifted up, and frankly, this economy is not working for working people. For too long, the rules have been written in the favor of the people who have the most and not in favor of the people who work the most, which is why I am proposing that we change the tax code so for every family that is making less than $100,000 a year, they will receive a tax credit that they can collect up to $500 a month, which will make all the difference between those families being able to get through the end of the month with dignity and with support or not. And on day one, I will repeal that tax bill that benefits the top 1% and the biggest corporations of America.
Senator Harris, thank you. Governor Hickenlooper, let me get you in on this. You've warned that Democrats will lose in 2020 if they embrace socialism, as you put it. You were booed at the California Democratic Convention when you said that. Only one candidate on this stage, Senator Sanders, identifies himself as a democratic socialist. What are the policies or positions of your opponents that you think are veering towards socialism?
Well, I think that the bottom line is if we don't clearly define that we are not socialists, the Republicans are going to come at us every way they can and call us socialists. And if you look at the Green New Deal, which I admire the sense of urgency and how important it is to do climate change, I'm a scientist, but we can't promise every American a government job. If you want to get universal health care coverage, I believe that health care is a right and not a privilege. But you can't expect to eliminate private insurance for 180 million people, many of whom don't want to give it up. In Colorado, we brought businesses and nonprofits together. We got near universal health care coverage. We were the first state in America to bring the environmental community and the oil and gas industry to aggressively address methane emissions. And we were also the first place to expand reproductive rights on a scale basis, and we reduced teen pregnancy by 54%. We've done the big progressive things that people said couldn't be done. I've done what pretty much everyone else up here is still talking about doing.
Governor, thank you. Senator Sanders, I'll give you a chance to weigh in here. What is your response to those who say nominating a socialist would re-elect Donald Trump?
Well, I think the responses that the last poll I saw had us 10 points ahead of Donald Trump.
That's right.
Because the American people understand that Trump is a phony, that Trump is a pathological liar and a racist, and that he lied to the American people during his campaign. He said he was going to stand up for working families. Well, President Trump, you're not standing up for working families when you try to throw 32 million people off the health care that they have, and that 83% of your tax benefits go to the top 1%. That's how we beat Trump. We expose him for the fraud that he is.
I disagree with both their perspectives. The debate we're having in our party right now is confusing because the truth is there's a big difference between capitalism on the one hand and greed on the other. And so all the things that we're trying to change is when companies care more about profits when they do about people. So if you're talking about ending gun violence, it's the greed of the NRA and the gun manufacturers that make any progress impossible. It's the greed of the insurance companies and the drug companies when we want to try to get health care as a right and not a privilege. So there need not be disagreement in the party because in truth, we want healthy capitalism.
Thank you.
We don't want corrupted capitalism.
Thank you. I want to be fair to all the candidates. Thank you. Senator Bennett, you have said, quote, it's possible to write policy proposals that have no basis in reality. You might as well call them candy. Were you referring to any candidate or proposal in particular when you said that?
Was that directed to me?
Yes, that was your quote.
That sounded like me. Thank you.
It was you.
I appreciate it. Well, look, first of all, I agree completely with Bernie about what the fundamental challenge we're facing as a country is. 40 years of no economic growth for 90% of the American people. 160,000 families in the top 0.1% have the same wealth as the bottom 90%, and we've got the worst income inequality that we've had in 100 years. Where I disagree is on his solution on Medicare for all. You know, I have proposed getting to universal health care, which we need to do. It is a right. Health care is a right. We need to get to universal health care. I believe the way to do that is by finishing the work we started with Obamacare and creating a public option that every family and every person in America can make a choice for their family about whether they want a public option, which for them would be like having Medicare for all, or whether they want to keep their private insurance. I believe we will get there much more quickly if we do that.
But wait,
Bernie, if I could just finish, Bernie mentioned that the taxes that we would have to pay. Because of those taxes, Vermont rejected Medicare for all.
Senator,
and we should
Senator, we are going to talk about health care at length, Senator, but for the moment, my colleague can say.
Bill. I wrote the part in Senator Sanders' bill that is the transition, which merges what the two senators said. Because the truth is, if you have a buy-in over a 4 or 5 year period, you move us to single payer more quickly.
Senator, we will get to this. We will get to this. Before we do, I want to say hello and good evening, buenas noches to Mayor Buttigieg.
Buenas noches, gracias de invitarme.
Caballero.
Oh man, I
Many
forgot
of your
to
colleagues on stage support free
learn
college.
Spanish.
You do not. Why not?
Sure. So college affordability is personal for us. Chasten and I have 6-figure student debt. I believe in reducing student debt. It's logical to me that if you can refinance your house, you ought to be able to refinance your student debt. I also believe in free college for low and middle income students for whom cost could be a barrier. I just don't believe it makes sense to ask working class families to subsidize.
What are you thinking here, Woodman? You getting who you voting for, man?
Man, yep. The one was saying, you know, honesty, you know, Trump's a liar. What, are you kidding me? Every one of the people up there sitting up there lying.
He lied once during his campaign, and we plan to expose it. You know, it's like, geez, you lied. You know, you're lying right now. We hear you.
Afford rent, be generous to your church and Little League. Whether you went to college or not, that's one of many reasons we need to raise the minimum wage to at least $15 an hour.
Jose, I've got $100,000 in student loan debt myself.
Let me get to you.
We can't count on the people who've been in government for the last 30 years who were around when this problem was created to be the ones to solve it. It's going to be the next generation, the 40 million of us who can't start a family, can't take a good idea and start a business, and can't buy our first home. This is the generation that's going to be able to solve student loan debt. This generation is ready to lead.
Mr. Yang, your signature policy is to give every adult in the United States $1,000 a month, no questions asked.
That's right.
I think that's like $3.2 trillion a year. How would you do that?
Yeah.
Sorry?
How would you do that?
Oh, so
I'd
it's difficult
write
to
a
do
check.
if you have companies like Amazon, trillion-dollar tech companies paying literally zero in taxes while they're closing 30% of our stores. Now, we need to put the American people in position to benefit from all these innovations in other parts of the economy. And if we had a value-added tax at even half the European level, it would generate over $800 billion in new revenue, which combined with the money in our hands, it would be the trickle-up economy from our people, families, and communities up. We would spend the money and it would circulate through our regional economies and neighborhoods, creating millions of jobs, making our families stronger and healthier. We'd save money on things like incarceration, homelessness services, emergency room health care, and just the value gains from having a stronger, healthier, mentally healthier population would increase GDP by $700 billion. This is the move that we have to make, particularly as technology is now automating away millions of American jobs. It's why Donald Trump is our president today, that we automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs in Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And we're about to do the same thing to millions of retail jobs, call center jobs, fast food jobs, truck driving jobs, and on and on through the economy.
Mr. Aaron, if I get you understand a little bit better, so you're saying $1,000 a month for everyone over 18, but a value-added tax, so you can spend that $1,000 on value-added tax?
Well, the value-added tax would end up, you'd still be increasing the buying power of the bottom 94% of Americans. You have to spend a lot of money for a mild value-added tax to eat up $12,000 a year per individual. So for the average family with 2 or 3 adults, it'd be $24,000 to $36,000 a year.
Okay, Congressman Swalwell, I want to talk a little bit about what
Oops, my bad.
cars, robots, drones, artificial intelligence will cost them their jobs. What would you do to help people get the skills they need to adapt to this new world?
We must always be a country where technology creates more jobs than it displaces. And I've seen the anxiety across America where the manufacturing floors go from 1,000 to 100 to 1. So we have to modernize our schools, value the teachers who prepare our kids, wipe the student debt from any teacher that goes into a community that needs it, invest in America's communities, especially where places where the best exports are people who move away to get skills. But Jose, I was 6 years old when a presidential candidate came to the California Democratic Convention and said, it's time to pass the torch to a new generation of Americans. That candidate was then Senator Joe Biden. Joe Biden was right when he said it was time to pass the torch to a new generation of Americans 32 years ago. He's still right
32 years ago.
The issues of automation.
It's pretty good. Look at old Joe. Sloppy Joe.
Pass the torch. If we're going to solve the issue of student loan debt, pass the torch. If we're going to end gun violence for families who are fearful of sending their kids to school, pass the torch.
Vice President, would you like to sing a torch song?
I would.
Torch song? Would you like to light your torch,
I'm still
sir?
holding on to that torch. I want to make it clear to you, look.
I haven't handed it off yet.
What we have to do is make sure that everybody is prepared better to go on to educate for an education. The fact is that's why I propose us focusing on schools that are in distress. That's why I think we should triple the amount of money we spend for Title I schools. That's why I think we should have universal pre-K. That's why I think every single person who graduates from high school, 65 out of 100 now, need something.
He was like, what? What?
That's why there should be free community college, cutting in half the cost of college. That's why we should be in a position where we do not have anyone have to pay back a student debt when they get out. They are making less than $25,000 a year. Their debt is frozen, no interest payment until they get beyond that. We can't put people in a position where they aren't able to go on and move on. And so, folks, there's a lot we can do, but we have to make continuing education available for everyone so that everyone can compete in the 21st century. We're not doing that now.
Senator Sanders.
As the youngest guy on the stage, I feel like I probably ought to contribute to the generation.
As part of Joe's generation, part of Joe's generation, let me respond.
Before we move on,
the issue, if I may say, is not generational.
Please.
The
Senator
issue
Sanders,
is not generational. The issue is who has the guts to take on Wall Street, to take on the fossil fuel industry, to take on the big money interests who have unbelievable influence over the economic and political life of this country.
Trump's doing that.
Senator Harris, I'm so sorry. We will let all of you speak. Senator Harris.
Look at them. They're all yippity-yapping up there, boy.
We will let you all speak. Senator Harris.
position.
Hey, guys, you know what? America does not want to witness a food fight. They want to know how we're going to put food on their table. Yes.
Oh.
Yahoo, Yahoo. Big brownie points for that one.
Part of the issue that is at play in America today, and we've all been traveling around the country, I certainly have, I'm meeting people who are working 2 and 3 jobs. You know, this president walks around talking about and flouting his great economy, right? My great economy, my great economy. You ask him, well, how are you measuring this greatness of this economy of yours? And he talks about the stock market. Well, that's fine if you own stocks. So many families in America do not. You ask them, how are you measuring the greatness of this economy of yours? And they point to the jobless numbers and the unemployment numbers. Well, yeah, people in America are working. They're working 2 and 3 jobs. So when we talk about jobs, let's be really clear. In our America, no one should have to work more than 1 job to have a roof over their head and food on the table.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Well, we got to quit making all the jobs go overseas for that to happen, which is what you guys have been doing for 40 years before all this. Mess them up.
Abolish 80% of the feds. Woo, hey, that's a big chunk of savings right there.
Health insurance of their employer. Who here would abolish their private health insurance in favor of a government-run plan? All right.
They all have government-run plans. Look at Bernie.
Yeah.
So,
it's my turn.
This is a very important issue.
That's what she said. You have to fight for this shit. There's 25 of you now.
Is how you get to single payer.
Simmer your crazy. Simmer your crazy a little bit, folks.
In 2005, when I ran for Congress in a 2-to-1 Republican district, I actually ran on Medicare for All. And I won that 2-to-1 Republican district twice.
She did. Let us know.
And the way I formulated it was simple. Anyone who doesn't have access to insurance they like, they could buy in at a percentage of income they could afford. So that's what we put into the transition period for our Medicare for All plan. I believe we need to get to universal health care as a right and not a privilege to single payer. The quickest way you get there is you create competition with the insurers. God bless the insurers. If they want to compete, they can certainly try. But they've never put people over their profits, and I doubt they ever will. So what will happen is people will choose Medicare, you will transition, we will get to Medicare for All, and then your step to single payer is so short. I would make it an earned benefit, just like Social Security, so that you buy in your whole life, it is always there for you, and it's permanent and it's universal.
Senator, your time is up. I want to put that same question to Mayor Buttigieg.
Yeah, we've taught, look, everybody who says Medicare
Thanks
for
for
all,
the super chats, by the way.
Politics who allows that phrase to escape
Triple
their
digits
lips
daily.
has a responsibility to explain how you're actually supposed to get from here to there. Now, here's how I would do it. It's very similar. I would call it Medicare for all who want it. You take something like Medicare, a flavor of that, and you make it available on the exchanges. People can buy in, and then if people like us are right, that will be not only a more inclusive plan, but a more efficient plan than any of the corporate answers out there, then it will be a very natural glide path to the single-payer environment. But let's remember, even in countries that have outright socialized medicine, like England, even there's still a private sector. That's fine. It's just that for our primary care, we can't be relying on the tender mercies of the corporate system. This one's very personal for me. I started out this year dealing with the terminal illness of my father. I make decisions for a living. And nothing could have prepared me for the kind of decisions our family faced. But the thing we had going for us was that we never had to make those decisions based on whether it was going to bankrupt our family because of Medicare. And I want every family to have that same freedom to do what is medically right, not live in financial fear.
Your time is complete. Vice President Biden, I want to put the question to you. You were one of the architects of Obamacare. So where do we go from here?
Look, this is very personal to me.
Yeah, you were back there 38 years ago when we started this. What's
my
up?
wife and daughter were killed in an automobile accident. My 2 boys were really very badly injured. I couldn't imagine what it would be like had I not had adequate health care available immediately. And then when my son came home from Iraq after a year, was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and he was given months to live. I can't fathom what would have happened if, in fact, they said, by the way, the last 6 months of your life, you're on your own. We're cutting off. You've used up your time. The fact of the matter is that the quickest, fastest way to do it is build on Obamacare, to build on what we did. And secondly, to make sure that everyone does have an option. Everyone, whether they have private insurance, employer insurance, or no insurance.
When my son got back from Iraq, he pulled a good little piece there, Woodman. If you saw him pull the wool right over your eyes. I saw him pull the wool over your eyes. I was watching for you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you betcha.
Without any of the help I had. We
I gotta blow my nose. I gotta blow my nose. I'll be right back. This is crazy.
You guys listen to Biden here for a minute.
Let me turn to Senator Sanders. Senator Sanders, you basically want to scrap the private health insurance system as we know it and replace it with a government-run plan. None of the states that have tried something like that, California, Vermont, New York, has struggled with it, have been successful. If politicians can't make it work in those states, how would you implement it on a national level? How does this work?
Listen, I find it hard to believe that every other major country on earth, including my neighbor 50 miles north of me, Canada, somehow has figured out a way to provide health care to every man, woman, and child, and in most cases, they're spending 50% per capita what we are spending. Let's be clear. Let us be very clear. The function of health care today, from the insurance and drug company perspective, is not to provide quality care to all in a cost-effective way. The function of the healthcare system today is to make billions in profits for the insurance companies. And last year, if you could believe it, while we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, and I will lower prescription drug prices in half in this country, top 10 companies made $69 billion in profit. They will spend hundreds of millions of dollars lying to the American people, telling us why we cannot have a Medicare for all single-payer program.
I just have to follow up there. How do you implement it on a national level? How do you implement it on a national level, given the fact it's not succeeded and other states have tried?
I will tell you how we'll do it. We'll do it the way real change has always taken place, whether it was the labor movement, the civil rights movement, or the women's movement. We will have Medicare for all, when tens of millions of people are prepared to stand up and tell the insurance companies and the drug companies that their day is gone, that health care is a human right, not something to make huge profits off of.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Williamson. Ms. Williamson, this is a question for you. Excuse me, I'm addressing the question, Ms. Williamson. We've been talking a lot about access to health insurance, but for many Americans, their most pressing concern is the high cost of health care. How would you lower the cost of prescription drugs?
Well, first of all, the government should never have made the deal with the big pharma that they couldn't negotiate. That was just part of the regular corruption by which multinational corporations have their way with us. You know, I want to say that while I agree with, I'm with Senator Bennett and others, but I agree with almost everything here. I'll tell you one thing. It's really nice that we've got all these plans, but if you think we're going to beat Donald Trump by just having all these plans, you got another thing coming. Because he didn't win by saying he had a plan. He won by simply saying, make America great again. We've got to get deeper than just these superficial fixes, as important as they are. Even if we're just talking about the superficial fixes, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have a health care system in the United States. We have a sickness care system in the United States. We just wait till somebody gets sick, and then we talk about who's going to pay for the treatment and how they're going to be treated. What we need to talk about is why so many Americans have unnecessary chronic illnesses, so many more compared to other countries. And that gets back into not just the big pharma, not just health insurance companies. It has to do with chemical policies. It has to do with environmental policies. It has to do with food policies. It has to do with drug policies.
Thank you, Senator.
It has to do with environmental
Senator
policies.
Bennett, a question for you. You want to keep the system that we have in place with Obamacare and build on it. You mentioned that a moment ago. Is that enough to get us to universal coverage?
I believe that will get us the quickest way there. And I thought the Vice President was very moving about this, and Mayor Pete as well. I had prostate cancer recently, as you may know, and it's why I was a little late getting in the race. The same week, my kid had her appendectomy out. And I feel very strongly that families ought to be able to have this choice. I think that's what the American people want. I believe it will get us there quickly. There are millions of people in America that do not have health insurance today because they can't. They're too wealthy. They make too much money to be on Medicaid. They can't afford health insurance. When Senator Sanders says that Canada is single payer, there are 35 million people in Canada. There are 330 million people in the United States, easily the number of people on a public option. It could easily be 35 million. And for them, it would be Medicare for all, as Mayor Buttigieg says. But for others that want to keep it, they should be able to keep it. And And I think that will be the fastest way to get where we need to go. Also, I will say, Bernie is a very honest person. He has said over and over again, unlike others that have supported this legislation, over and over again, that this will ban, make illegal, all insurance except cosmetic, except insurance for, I guess that's for plastic surgery. Everything else is banned under the Medicare for All proposal that he has
I'd let you go a little longer there, but obviously, Senator Sanders, you get a response. Senator Sanders, you
just very briefly. You know, Mike, Medicare is the most popular health insurance program in the country. People don't like their private insurance companies. They like their doctors and hospitals. Under our plan, people go to any doctor they want, any hospital they want. We will substantially lower the cost of health care in this country because we'll stop the greed of the insurance companies.
On this issue, we have to think about how this affects real people. And the reality of how this affects real people is captured in a story that many of us heard, and I will paraphrase. There is, any night in America, a parent who's seeing that their child has a temperature that is out of control, calls 911, what should I do? And they say, take the child to the emergency room. And so they get in their car and they drive, and they're sitting in the parking lot outside of the emergency room looking at those sliding glass doors while they have the hand on the forehead of their child, knowing that if they walk through those sliding glass doors, even though they have insurance, they will be out of $5,000 deductible when they walk through those doors. That's what insurance companies are doing in America today.
We're going to continue this discussion. I want us to put it in candidates, please.
I'm one of those parents. I was just in the emergency room, and I'm telling you,
Congressman, thank you.
We fight health insurance companies every single week. We stand in line and pay expensive prescription drugs. We have to have a health care guarantee. If you're sick, you're seen, and in America, you never go broke because of it.
Okay. A lot of you have been talking tonight about these government health care plans that you've proposed in one form or another. This is a show of hands question, and hold them up for a moment so people can see. Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants. Okay. Let me start with you, Mayor Buttigieg. Why? Mayor Buttigieg, why?
Because our country is healthier when everybody is healthier. And remember, we're talking about something people are given a chance to buy into. In the same way that there are undocumented immigrants in my community who they pay sales taxes, they pay property taxes directly or indirectly. This is not about a handout. This is an insurance program. And we do ourselves no favors by having 11 million undocumented people in our country be unable to access health care. But of course, the real problem is we shouldn't have 11 million undocumented people with no pathway to citizenship. It makes no sense. And the American people agree on what to do. This is the crazy thing. If leadership consists of forming a consensus around a divisive issue, this White House has divided us around a consensus issue. The American people want a pathway to citizenship. They want protections for dreamers. We need to clean up the lawful immigration system, like how my father immigrated to this country. And as part of a compromise, we can do whatever common sense measures are needed at the border. But Washington can't deliver on something the American people want. What does that tell you about the system we're living in? It tells you it needs profound structural reform.
Vice President Biden, I believe you said that your health care plan would not cover undocumented immigrants. Could you explain your position?
I'm sorry, I beg your pardon.
I believe at the show of hands you did not raise your hand. Did you raise your hand?
No, I did.
Okay, sorry. So you said they would be covered under your plan, which is different than Obamacare.
Yes, but here's the thing.
Can you explain that change?
Yes. You cannot let, as the mayor said, you cannot let people who are sick, no matter where they come from, no matter what their status, go uncovered. You can't do that. It's just going to be taken care of, period. You have to. It's a humane thing to do. But here's the deal. The deal is that he's right about three things. Number one, they, in fact, contribute to the well-being of the country, but they also, for example, they've increased the lifespan of Social Security because they have a job, they're paying a Social Security tax. That's what they're doing. It's increased the lifespan. They would do the same thing in terms of reducing the overall cost of health care by them being able to be treated and not wait till they're in extremis. The other thing is, folks, look, we can deal with these insurance companies. We can deal with the insurance companies by, number one, putting insurance executives in jail for their misleading advertising, what they're doing on opioids, what they're doing paying doctors to prescribe. We could be doing this by making sure everyone who is on Medicare, that the government should be able to negotiate the price for whatever the drug costs are. We can do this by making sure that we're in a position that we, in fact, allow people. Time's up.
I just want to address that point.
Actually, if you can hold off a minute, we need to take a short break here. We got a lot more we need to talk to all of you about, so stick with us. We're just getting started. We'll be back with more from Miami right after this.
Did you get a bunch of that lies?
Yeah. I couldn't. Man, I hope you didn't get hit by any flying tomatoes up there. Man.
This guy, you know.
Talk
I raised
about
my hand. I
talking
raised
over
my hand. They're arguing about raising hands.
Yeah. Each one's talking over each other. It's just, it's, you know, wow, what a show of adulthood, you know. Man, acting like a bunch of little kids up there.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. Bunch of little children.
Welcome back from Miami.
And be grounded.
Senator
Let's
Harris.
have a little more here.
Last month, more than 130,000 migrants were apprehended at the southern border. Many of them are being detained, including small children, in private detention centers in Florida and throughout our country. Most of the candidates on this stage say the conditions at these facilities are abhorrent. On January 20th, 2021, if you are president, what specifically would you do with the thousands of people who try to reach the United States every day and want a better life through asylum?
Immediately on January 20th of 2021, I will, first of all, we cannot forget our DACA recipients, and so I'm going to start there. I will immediately, by executive action, reinstate DACA status and DACA protection to those young people. I will further extend protection for deferral of deportation for their parents and for veterans, who we have so many who are undocumented and have served our country and fought for our democracy. I will also immediately put in place a meaningful process for reviewing the cases for asylum. I will release children from cages. I will get rid of the private detention centers. And I will ensure that this microphone that the President of the United States holds in her hand is used in a way that is about reflecting the values of our country, and not about locking children up, separating them from their parents. And I have to just say that we have to think about this issue in terms of real people. A mother who pays a coyote to transport her child through their country of origin, through the entire country of Mexico, facing unknown peril to come here. Why would that mother do that? I will tell you. Because she has decided for that child to remain where they are is worse. But what does Donald Trump do? He says, go back to where you came from. That is not reflective of our America and our values, and it's got to end.
Governor Hickenlooper.
Oh, she's broke down a whole
day one, if you are day one at the White House.
All of that's Donald Trump.
How do you respond
with these children?
You know, these people that hire these coyotes that rape and impregnate these women, and they get like treated like crap the whole time. And then it's all about, but Donald Trump, you know, once he gets here, he's the one telling him to go back. I mean, not the mother, not the anything else. Like, just what a way to put responsibility all just to Trump.
Why would a mother put their children in harm's way to begin with? That's not very motherly-like.
To take children from the arms of their parents,
Tired of hearing this
put them in cages, actually put them up for
In
adoption.
cages, because 30% aren't matching up to the parents at the border, you son of a bitch.
I would have told you it was unbelievable. And
Right, Woodman?
the first thing we have to do is
You know it.
recognize the humanitarian crisis on the border for what it is. We make sure that there are the sufficient facilities in place so that women and children are not separated from their families, the children are with their families. We have to make sure that ICE is completely reformed and they begin looking at their job in a humanitarian way where they're addressing the whole needs of the people that they are engaged with along the border. And we'd have to make sure ultimately that we provide not just shelter, but food, clothing, and access to medical care. Ms. Williamson.
Yes, what Donald Trump has
Even the
done to
cartel
these children, and it's
coming
not just in
across.
Colorado. Governor, you're right. It is kidnapping, and it's extremely important for us to realize that. If you forcibly take a child from their parents' arms, you're kidnapping them. And if you take a lot of children and you put them in a detainment center, thus inflicting chronic trauma upon them, that's called child abuse. This is collective child abuse. And when this is crime, both of those things are a crime. And if your government does it, that doesn't make it less of a crime. These are state-sponsored crimes.
Congressman.
And what President
There we
Trump
go.
has
Yeah.
done is not
There you go,
only
brother.
attack these children, not only
seen this one?
demonize these immigrants. He is
Yeah.
attacking a basic principle
Pretty cool.
of America's moral core. We
It's
open our
camouflage. I didn't know if you
hearts
could
to
see
the
it.
stranger. This is extremely important.
I can see the
And it's
the wording.
important for all of us to remember. And I have great
Just
respect
hovering
for
there, huh?
everyone who is on this,
Yeah.
this stage. But we're going to talk about what to do about health care. Well, where have you been, guys? Because if it's not just a matter of a plan, and
Where
I
you
haven't heard
been,
anybody
guys?
on this stage who has talked about American foreign policy in Latin America and how we might have, in the last few decades, contributed to something.
That right.
Gillibrand, what would you do as president?
Oh, boy.
with a reality.
Well, one of the worst things about President Trump that he's done to this country is he's torn apart the moral fabric of who we are. When he started separating
Sure he
children at
has.
the border from their parents, the fact that 7 children have died in his custody, the fact that dozens of children have been
Yes.
separated from their parents.
Custody, right, Woodman?
Man, holy cow.
buy
Like I
that
say,
stuff.
what mother would send their child through all that, knowing what kind of duress they're going to be throughout this whole thing?
I would have a community
Man, you know,
Yeah.
where you're doing it within the communities where
with
asylum seekers
birth
are given
control so
lawyers,
they
where
don't get pregnant coming up.
employees of the
Yeah,
Attorney General,
that'd
but
be
appointed for life, and have a
something to
community-based
think
system.
about.
I would fund border security, but the worst thing President Trump has done is he's diverted the funds
I quit
away
keeping
from
track of
cross-border
Trump's,
terrorism,
my hand was hurting.
cross-border human trafficking, drug trafficking, and gun trafficking, and he's given that money to the for-profit prisons. I would not be spending money in for-profit
We have-
prisons to lock up children and asylum seekers.
We had a very spirited debate on this stage last night on the topic of decriminalization of the border. If you'd be so kind, raise your hand if you think it should be a civil offense rather than a crime to cross the border without documentation. Can we keep the hands up so we could see them?
Whoa, you got to be kidding
Let's remember,
me.
that's not just a theoretical exercise. That criminalization, that is the basis for family separation. You do away with that, it's no longer possible. Of course, it wouldn't be possible anyway in my presidency because it is dead wrong. We got to talk about one other thing, because the Republican Party likes to cloak itself in the language of religion. Now, our party doesn't talk about that as much, largely for a very good reason, which was we are committed to the separation of church and state, and we stand for people of any religion and people of no religion. But we should call out hypocrisy when we see it. And for a party that...
Yep, okay, you know it.
Crazy
suggest that
stuff,
God would
Woodman.
smile on the division of families at the hands of federal agents, that God would condone putting children in cages, has lost all claim to ever use religious language again.
Vice President,
Do you think God likes you being openly gay married man?
or we're just asking to speak. Would you decriminalize crossing the border without documents?
The first thing I would do is unite families. I'd surge immediately billions of dollars worth of help to the region immediately. Look, I talk about foreign policy. I'm the guy that got a bipartisan agreement at the very end of the campaign, at the very end of our term, to spend $740 million to deal with the problem. And that was to go to the root cause of why people are leaving in the first place. It was working. We saw, as you know, a net decrease in the number of children who were coming. The crisis was abated. And along came this president. He said he immediately discontinued that. We all talk about these things. I did it. I did it. 740 million. Now look, second thing. Second thing
He did it, man. He did
the
it.
law now requires the reuniting of those families. We would reunite those families, period. And if not, we put those children in a circumstance where they were safe until we could find their parents. And lastly, the idea that he's in court with his Justice Department saying children in cages do not need a bed, do not need a blanket, do not need a toothbrush. That is outrageous.
Vice President, the Obama-Biden administration
Let them keep their toothbrush that they brought.
The Obama-Biden administration deported more than 3 million Americans. My question to you is, if an individual is living in the United States of America without documents and that is his only offense, should that person be deported?
No.
Depending if they committed a major crime. They should be deported. And the president was left in his... President Obama, I think, did a heck of a job. To compare him to what this guy's doing is absolutely, I find, close to immoral. But the fact is that
I guess no good.
We should not be locking people up. We should be making sure we change the circumstance, as we did, why they would leave in the first place. And those who come seeking asylum, we should immediately have the capacity to absorb them, keep them safe until they can be heard.
A 15-second, if you could, if you wish to answer. Should someone who is here without documents, and that is his only offense, should that person be deported?
That person should not be the focus of deportation. We should fundamentally change the way we deal with things.
Senator,
I want to suggest that I agree with a lot of what Kamala just said. And that is, on day one, we take out our executive order pen and we rescind every damn thing on this issue that Trump has done. Number two.
You got to.
On the point that Joe made. We got to look at the root causes.
What? Turn it down?
No, he was going.
Among other things, is a failing state.
You got to.
You got gangs who are telling families that if a 10-year-old does not join that gang, that family is going to be killed. What we have got to do on day one is invite the presidents and the
They're all worried about, they're fleeing from the gangs in their country. Well, we got gangs here. Are they fleeing from them?
Congressman Swalwell.
Yeah, that's where some of the gangs came from. MS-13.
Someone is here without documents, and that is their only offense. Is that person to be deported?
No. That person can be a part of this great American experience. That person can contribute. My congressional district is one of the most diverse in America, and we see the benefits when people contribute and they become a part of the community and they're not in the shadow economy. Day one for me, families are reunited. This president, though, for immigrants, there's nothing he will not do to separate a family, cage a child, or erase their existence by weaponizing the census. And there is nothing that we cannot do in the courts and that I will not do as president to reverse that and to make sure that families always belong together.
Senator Harris.
Well, thank you. I will say, no, absolutely not. They should not be deported. And I actually, this was one of the very few issues with which I disagreed with the administration, with whom I otherwise had a great relationship and a great deal of respect. But on the secure communities issue, I was Attorney General of California. I led the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, second only to the United States Department of Justice in a state of 40 million people. And on this issue, I disagreed with my president because the policy was to allow deportation of people who, by ICE's own definition, were non-criminals. So as Attorney General and the Chief Law Officer of the state of California, I issued a directive to the sheriffs of my state that they did not have to comply with detainers and instead should make decisions based on the best interest of public safety of their community. Because what I saw, and I was tracking it every day, I was tracking it and saw that parents, people who had not committed a crime, even by ICE's own definition, were being deported. But I have to add a point here. The problem with this kind of policy, and I know it as a prosecutor, Senator, I want a rape victim to be able to run in the middle of the street and wave down a police officer and report the crime against her. I want anybody who has been the victim of any real crime to be able to do that and not be afraid that if they do that,
time is up, lady.
Because the abuser will tell them.
Damn. If you're president, will you shut up?
Now, if we can. Last night, we asked the candidates on this stage to name the greatest geopolitical threat facing the U.S. 4 of them mention China. U.S. businesses say China steals our intellectual property, and party leaders on both sides accuse China of manipulating their currency to keep the cost of goods artificially low.
Trump won the first Democratic debate. Is he going to win tonight? He's the 11th person up on the stage.
The biggest
again.
The biggest
talking about
security right now is Russia, not China. And second, on China, we've got competition because of what they've done with our elections. In China, I think the president's been right to push back on China, but has done it in completely the wrong way. We should mobilize the entire rest of the world, who all have a shared interest in pushing back on China's mercantilist trade policies, and I think we can do that. I'd like to answer the other question before this as well.
You have the time.
When I see these kids at the border, I see my mom because I know she sees herself, because she was separated from her parents for years during the Holocaust in Poland. And for Donald Trump to be doing what he's doing to children and their families at the borders, I say this as somebody who wrote the immigration bill in 2013 that created a pathway to citizenship for 11 million people in this country, that had the most progressive DREAM Act that's ever been conceived, much less passed. It got 68 votes in the Senate. That had $46 billion of border security in it. There was sophisticated 21st century border security, not a medieval wall. And the president has turned the border of the United States into a symbol of nativist hostility that the whole world is looking at, when what we should be represented by is the Statue of Liberty, which has brought my parents to this country to begin with. We need to make a change.
We all know that viral video.
On the issue of China, you've expressed a lot of concerns about technology and taking jobs. Are you worried about China? And if so, how would you stand up against it?
Well, I just want to agree that I think Russia is our greatest geopolitical threat, because they've been hacking our democracy successfully, and they've been laughing their asses off about it for the last couple of years. So we should focus on that before we start worrying about other threats. Now, China, they do pirate our intellectual property. It's a massive problem. But the tariffs and the trade war are just punishing businesses and producers and workers on both sides. I met with a farmer in Iowa who said he spent 6 years building up a buying relationship in China that's now disappeared and gone forever. And the beneficiaries have not been American workers or people in China. It's been Southeast Asia and other producers that have then stepped into the void. So we need to crack down on Chinese malfeasance in the trade relationship, but the tariffs and the trade war are the wrong way to go.
All right, Mayor Buttigieg, how would you stand up against China?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we've got to recognize that the China challenge really is a serious one. This is not something to dismiss or wave away. And if you look at what China is doing, they're using technology for the perfection of dictatorship. But their fundamental economic model isn't going to change because of some tariffs. I live in the industrial Midwest. Folks who aren't in the shadow of a factory are somewhere near a soy field where I live. And manufacturers, and especially soy farmers, are hurting. Tariffs are taxes. And Americans are going to pay on average $800 more a year because of these tariffs. Meanwhile, China is investing so that they could soon be able to run circles around us in artificial intelligence. And this president is fixated on the China relationship as if all that mattered was the export balance on dishwashers. We've got a much bigger issue on our hands. But at a moment when their authoritarian model is being held up as an alternative to ours, because ours looks so chaotic compared to theirs right now, because of our internal divisions, The biggest thing we've got to do is invest in our own domestic competitiveness. If we disinvest in our own infrastructure, education, we are never going to be able to compete. And if we really want to be an alternative, a democratic alternative, we actually have to demonstrate that we care about democratic values at home and around the world.
We've got a good debate so far. We're going to take a quick break here, candidates. When we come
All
back,
right,
the
good.
questioning continues with our colleagues. Chuck
Man.
will be here. Much more with our candidates straight ahead.
Ugh.
I'm glad I got another box of popcorn the other day.
I agree.
Unbelievable. All those people sitting up there and lying. I mean, look, they all talk about if I. They've all been part. They've all been part of the big machine to begin with. That kept things array anyhow. If I. Yeah, okay. Whatever. If I.
We got a picture here for the Twitter feed. Follow us over on Twitter if you're not.
Twitter.
It's a good time, man. It's a good time. Don't let it go by.
And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds,
to the printing press.
the keeper of his conscience.
So we're just here kind of hearing a bunch of their lies. What are you picking up? I mean, I'm about done. I'm getting a headache. It's about an hour in.
Well, I kind of like the way they jump all over each other. You know, I mean, it's
Yeah,
like
that's a good time.
you got like 6 people talking at the same time. You know, and very disrespectful. That's how we want our next president to be. You know, somebody don't give another guy a chance, or you know, gosh, these guys have had so many years to fix things that finally got into office in the first place. And for them to stand up there and have the audacity to act like, you know, when I get in to be a president, things are going to change. Well, how are they going to change? They've had plenty of opportunity to change it in the past for a long time and never have. But they're not going to. They just get up there and say a good story, and then that's about where it stops, you know. Of course, then they'll always come up with an excuse about why they couldn't get it done, you know, like Congress wouldn't pass the bill, or it had junk on the bill, they couldn't send it through that way.
Yeah.
Anything.
It sounds like a lot of the same old that they don't really have answers, and things didn't get done on their watch. That one was good by Swale, the youngest guy. He likes to bring that up too. I'm the youngest candidate up here.
Yeah.
But he brought it up. He brought up this whole story about, you know, I liked it. You know, Biden was right when he said that about, you know, the younger and handing the torch off. And that was 32 years ago. And he's still, you know, everyone started laughing. Even Biden's, well, I'm still holding on to the torch, man. I haven't let it go yet, man.
It's amazing.
These people are something else.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
I'd go for a nightly run, blow off some steam. Yes, no, you're right.
So how many? I wonder how many years Biden's actually been in politics. You know, he's had a lot of time to fix things, especially with being President Obama's sidekick. You know, I still can't get over the fact that people don't look at Biden like that. They look at him as, you know, the change that we need to have.
Yeah,
he's part of the problem. He's part of the problem.
Woodman says.
Yeah.
No, that's.
Well, remember when
that's
President Obama done that?
Is like the Clintons were able to stand up there and act like they were for the poor man, or any of these people on the left that are Democrats are for the poor, Republicans for the rich. The Democrats are rich themselves. They're not for the poor. It's the illusion that they're for you. They're not. They're nothing like you.
Well, remember when Obama put that insurance thing into effect, made it a law, and Biden leaned up to him and said, "This is some big shit, man, right here." Remember that?
Yes.
This is some big shit, man, right here. But it was big shit.
Big shit. Yeah, his whole life's been big shit.
Big turd.
Big polished, under-polished turd is correct. You can polish a turd, but it's still shit, folks. I mean, geez.
Yeah, I'm telling you. No matter what happens, it's still a pile of shit.
Oh, shit.
Oh, these two here, I don't know this Maddow, I just can't.
None of us. Let's take a, if you can't stand Maddow, I don't know. I don't think she's a man, maybe. Put a 1 if you can't stand her. I'd just like to get an opinion on that because I can't stand her. Listening, folks. Tonight.
Yeah, but you know,
Idiocracy. Yes, idiocracy.
I wonder how she's gonna act when she has to eat a bunch of crow, like she used to say. You know,
she's gonna eat lots.
You know,
of
this
crow.
guy, and yeah,
She's gonna be eating crow soup, crow cereal. 1, 1, 1, nothing but ones. Look at all the ones coming up on the chat there. What, Maine?
I hear you. Carol Maine 1.
One
Yes,
means they can't stand her. 1 means can't stand you.
Yep. Yes, indeed.
Because I couldn't get it done. My community is in anguish right now because of an officer-involved shooting. A black man,
Talking about
Eric
South
Logan,
Bend, Indiana
killed
here.
by a white
Listen in.
officer. And I'm not allowed to take sides until the investigation comes back. The officer said he was attacked with a knife, but he didn't have his body camera on. It's a mess, and we're hurting. And I could walk you through all of the things that we have done as a community, all of the steps that we took from bias training to de-escalation, but it didn't save the life of Eric Logan. And when I look into his mother's eyes, I have to face the fact that nothing that I say will bring him back. This is an issue that is facing our community and so many communities around the country. And until we move policing out from the shadow of systemic racism, whatever this particular incident teaches us, we will be left with the bigger problem of the fact that there's a wall of mistrust put up one racist act at a time, not just from what's happened in the past, but from what's happening around the country in the present. It threatens the well-being of every community. And I am determined to bring about a day when a white person driving a vehicle and a black person driving a vehicle, when they see a police officer approaching, feels the exact same thing, a feeling not of fear, but of safety. I am determined to bring that day about.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
If I could ask one question, just because I think...
Governor, I'll give you 30 seconds.
I think that the question they're asking in South Bend, I think in cities across the country, is why has it taken so long? We had a shooting when I first became mayor 10 years before Ferguson. And the community came together and we created an Office of the Independent Monitor, a Civilian Oversight Commission. We diversified the police force in 2 years. We actually did de-escalation training. I think the real question that America should be asking is why 5 years after Ferguson, every city doesn't have this level of police accountability.
Governor Hickenlooper, thank you.
I've got to respond to that. Look, we've taken so many steps toward police accountability that the FOP just denounced me for too much accountability. We're obviously not there yet. And I accept responsibility for that because I'm in charge.
Policy, you should fire the chief.
So under Indiana law, this will be investigated, and there will be accountability for the officer involved.
But you're the mayor. You should fire the chief if that's the policy and someone died.
All of these issues are extremely important, but there are specifics, there are symptoms, and the underlying cause has to do with deep, deep, deep realms of racial injustice, both in our criminal justice system and in our economic system. And the Democratic Party should be on the side of reparations for slavery for this very reason. I do not believe that the average American is a racist, but the average American is woefully undereducated about the history of race in the United States.
Ms. Williamson, thank you very much.
Vice President Biden, we're going to get to you. Hang on, we're going to get to
stage. I would like to speak on the issue of race.
Senator Harris,
what I will say is that
if I could preface this, we will give you 30 seconds since we're going to come back to you on this again in just a moment. Go for 30 seconds.
Okay. So on the issue of race, I couldn't agree more that this is an issue that is still not being talked about truthfully and honestly. There is not a black man I know, be he a relative, a friend, or a coworker, who has not been the subject of some form of profiling or discrimination. Growing up, my sister and I had to deal with the neighbor who told us her parents couldn't play with us because we were black. And I will say also that in this campaign, we have also heard, and I'm going to now direct this at Vice President Biden, I do not believe you are a racist. And I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. And, you know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me. So I will tell you that on this subject, it cannot be an intellectual debate among Democrats. We have to take it seriously. We have to act swiftly. As Attorney General of California, I was very proud to put in place a requirement that all my special agents would wear body cameras and keep those cameras on.
Senator Harris, thank you. Vice President Biden, you have been invoked. We are going to give you a chance to respond. Vice President Biden.
It's a mischaracterization of my position across the board. I did not praise racist. That is not true, number one. Number two, if we want to have this campaign litigated on who supports civil rights and whether I did or not, I'm happy to do that. I was a public defender. I didn't become a prosecutor. I came out and I left a good law firm to become a public defender when in fact my city was in flames. I think it was a hit on her because she was a defender. The assassination of Dr. King, number one. Number two, as the Vice President of the United States, I work with a man who, in fact, we worked very hard to see to it we dealt with these issues in a major, major way. The fact is that in terms of busing, the busing, you would have been able to go to school the same exact way because it was a local decision made by your city council. That's fine. That's one of the things I argued for, that we should be breaking down these lines. But so the bottom line here is, look, everything I've done in my career, I ran because of civil rights. I continue to think we have to make fundamental changes in civil rights. And those civil rights, by the way, include not just only African Americans, but the LGBT community.
But Vice President Biden, do you agree today that you were wrong to oppose busing in America then?
No.
Do you agree?
I did not oppose busing in America. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education. That's what I opposed.
Well, there was a failure of states to integrate public schools in America. I was part of the second class to integrate Berkeley, California public schools almost 2 decades after Brown v. Board of Education.
Because your city council made that decision. It was a local decision.
So that's where the federal government must step in. That's why we have the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. That's why we need to pass
That's why we need to have states jump on in.
Because there are moments in history where states fail to preserve the civil rights of all people.
I have supported the ERA from the very beginning when I ran for
Biden, 30 seconds, because I want to bring other people into this.
I supported the ERA from the very beginning.
You watch those lightning strikes come out of her
for 25
What's
years.
that?
Lightning strikes coming out of her mouth and she opened her mouth.
I've also argued very strongly that we, in fact, deal with the notion of denying people access to the ballot box. I agree that everybody, once they, in fact, they should. Anyway, my time's up. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Vice President.
All of these things have
Senator Sanders, I want to go to you on this. You said on the day you launched your campaign that voters should focus on what people stand for, not a candidate's race or age or sexual orientation.
That's all they do on that side.
Many
Don't
Democrats
vote for him because he's white, even if he's good enough, or
on the stage and on last night's
he's
stage.
Asian.
And the perspective that diversity brings to this contest and to these issues. Are you telling Democratic voters that diversity shouldn't matter when they make this decision?
No, absolutely not. Unlike the Republican Party, we encourage diversity. We believe in diversity. That's what America is about. But in addition to diversity, in terms of having more women, more people from the LGBT community, we also have to do something else. And that is, we have to ask ourselves a simple question. And that, how come today the worker in the middle of our economy is making no more money than he or she made 45 years ago, and that in the last 30 years, the top 1% has seen a $21 trillion increase in their wealth. We need a party that is diverse, but we need a party that has the guts to stand up to the powerful special interests who have so much power over the economic and political life of this country.
Senator Gillibrand, I want to give you 30 seconds on this.
Well, first of all, where Bernie left off.
Isn't that what he wants to do?
We've got a lot of good ideas on this stage tonight and a lot of plans. But the truth is, until you go to the root of the corruption, the money in politics, the fact that Washington is run by the special interests, you are never going to solve any of these problems. I have the most comprehensive approach that experts agree is the most transformative plan to actually take on political corruption, to get money out of politics through publicly funded elections, to have clean elections. If we do that and get money out of politics, we can guarantee health care as a right, not a privilege. We can deal with institutional racism. We can take on income inequality, and we can take on the corporate corruption that runs Washington.
The first constitutional amendment to do that was introduced by me when I was a young senator.
Thank you, Vice President. We want to shift topics here. Senator Bennett, the next question is for you. On the issue of
indeed.
President Obama promised in 2012 that after his reelection, Republicans would want to work with Democrats. Fever would break. That did not happen. Now Vice President Biden is saying the same thing, that if he is elected in 2020, both parties will want to work together. Should voters believe that somehow if there's a Democratic president in 2021, that gridlock is going to magically disappear?
Gridlock will not magically disappear as long as Mitch McConnell is there, first. Second, that's why it is so important for us to win not just the presidency, to have somebody that can run in all 50 states, but to win the Senate as well. And that's why we have to propose policies that can be supported, like Medicare Act, so that we can build a broad coalition of Americans to overcome broken Washington, D.C. I agree with what Senator Gillibrand was saying. I share a lot of her views.
He is
we need
too.
to end gerrymandering.
That's hilarious. All their gerrymandering. What are you guys thinking about this? We got about 800 in the room still. I mean, we digging it. I guess we wouldn't have 800 in the room.
I've been seeing quite a negativity down there in the chat line there.
Towards these people, yeah.
Yes, indeed.
It's good to hear it, though. It's good to
know
us
the Patriots.
They suck.
Us Patriots aren't as dumb as they think we are, you know.
Yeah.
Vice President Biden, 30 seconds.
Nothing but Hollywood up there.
Some of these people didn't talk at all.
You haven't seen
like Biden, Bernie.
Senate over the last 12 years.
They're not getting to some of these other people at all.
I have seen what happened just since we were vice president.
See who they're propping up already, folks.
Pass an $800 billion recovery act that kept us from going into depression. I got 3 votes changed. We needed to be able to keep the government from shutting down and going bankrupt. I got Mitch McConnell to raise taxes $600 billion by raising the top rate.
Oh boy, raising taxes.
$600,000.
I was able to put together a coalition of the Cures Act that billions of dollars go into cancer research, bipartisan. But sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes you just have to go out and beat them. I went into 20 states, over 60 candidates, and guess what? We beat them. We won back the Senate.
Thank you.
Chuck,
Thank you,
the problem with what the Vice President...
Yeah, 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Sometimes you do have to beat him, but the deal that he talked about with Mitch McConnell was a complete victory for the Tea Party. It extended the Bush tax cuts permanently.
What?
The Democratic Party had been running against that for 10 years. We lost that economic argument because that deal extended almost all those Bush tax cuts permanently and put in place the mindless cuts that we still are dealing with today that are called the sequester. That was a great deal for Mitch McConnell. It was a terrible deal for America.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator.
Own it, Biden.
The reason why the Trump tax cut had to be passed is because they had to pay back their donors. You heard it. They actually said those words. So the corruption in Washington is real, and it is something that makes every one of the plans we've heard about over the last several months impossible.
Amen to
and I
that.
have the most comprehensive approach to do it with clean elections, publicly funded elections. So we restore the power of our democracy into the hands of the voters, not into the Koch brothers. We were talking about issues. Imagine, we're in Florida. Imagine the Parkland kids having as much power in our democracy as the Koch brothers or the NRA. Imagine their voices carrying farther and wider than anyone else because their voice is needed.
Senator Joe, I'm trying to get everybody in here.
It's the first thing I'm going to do because nothing else is possible, whether it's education
I'm trying to get everybody in here.
or ending institutional racism.
Sanders, I'd like to put a different question to you. Roe versus Wade has been the law of the land since 1973. Now that there is a conservative majority on the Supreme Court, several Republican-controlled states have passed laws to severely restrict or even ban abortion.
Roe herself.
One of those laws could very well make it to the Supreme Court during your presidency, if you're elected president. What is your plan if Roe is struck down in the court while you're president?
Well, my plan is somebody who believes, for a start, that a woman's right to control her own body is a constitutional right, that government and politicians should not infringe on that right. We will do everything we can to defend our Roe versus Wade. Second of all, let me make a promise here. You ask about litmus test. My litmus test is I will never nominate any justice to the Supreme Court unless that justice is 100% clear he or she will defend Roe v. Wade. Third of all, I do not believe in packing the court. We got a terrible 5-4 majority conservative court right now. But I do believe that constitutionally we have the power to rotate judges to other courts. And that brings in new blood into the Supreme Court and a majority, I hope, that will understand that a woman has the right to control her own body and that corporations cannot run the United States of America.
Hold on, I'm going to give you 10 additional seconds because the question is, what if the court has already overturned Roe and Roe is gone? All of the things you just described would be to try to preserve Roe. If Roe is gone, what could you do as president to preserve abortion?
If it's gone, man.
Let me tell you this. Didn't come up here, but let's face this. Medicare for all guarantees every woman in this country the right to have an abortion if she wants it.
Thank you, Senator.
And can I just address this for a second?
Terrible.
And I want to talk directly to America's women and to the men who love them. Women's reproductive rights are under assault by President Trump and the Republican Party. 30 states are trying to overturn Roe v. Wade right now. And it is mind-boggling to me that we are debating this on this stage in 2019 among Democrats, whether women should have access to reproductive rights. I think we have to stop playing defense and start playing offense. But let me tell you one thing about politics, because it goes to the corruption and the deal-making. When the door is closed and the negotiations are made, there are conversations about women's rights, and compromises have been made on our backs. That's how we got to Hyde. That's how the Hyde Amendment was created, a compromise by leaders of both parties. Then we have the ACA. During the ACA negotiation, I had to fight like heck with other women to make sure that contraception wasn't sold down the river or abortion services. And so what we need to know is, imagine this one question. When we beat President Trump, and Mitch McConnell walks into the Oval Office, God forbid, to do negotiations, who do you want, when that door closes, to be sitting behind that desk to fight for women's rights? I have been the fiercest advocate for women's reproductive freedom for over a decade. And I promise you, as president, when that door closes, I will guarantee women's reproductive freedom no matter what.
Thank you. We're moving to climate. We're moving to climate, guys. Senator Harris, I'm addressing you first on this.
We believe in having our women in this country a bunch of hoes.
Climate change is a major concern for voters in your state.
Oh, Woodman, you foul mouth.
Well, think about it, man. That's what they're saying is, you know, the women should have the right to go out there and just screw anybody they want all the time, and, you know, birth control. And if they still get pregnant, whatever, we'll go ahead and just perform an abortion. That's up to the woman's whatever. Hey, look, women are just taking. It's fine to be equal. But don't expect it to go the other side for so far if you're supposed to be equal. You know, what you're saying is, in the United States of America, it's okay to be a slut. Pretty much what they're saying. I mean, that's the only way you can look at it, you know.
Yeah, I don't know how I felt on the whole thing. As far as it does seem weird. The whole conversation seems weird to me. That yeah, I don't know. They try to play sympathy with down at the border and the small kids down there and they're hungry, and then in the next breath is they have the right to kill somebody over here and they should be able to kill. It just strikes me real weird, and I don't know how I haven't wrapped a complete thought process around it yet. It's still like I mean, we're going on a year now. I'm just still like, oof. Just really hits me weird.
It's hard to fathom. Yeah. It's hard to fathom. What is it? New York says, after the child is born, you can kill it. But yet down at the border, like you say, they're playing, you can't do that.
Playing on you. Yeah, playing on you.
Can't separate woman from the child. Well, gee whiz, that's what they're doing when they kill the kids.
Yeah.
Boy, God, gee whiz.
A bunch of hows, Woodman said. That was funny.
Yeah. Well, that's what they're saying. I'm not saying women are hosed by any means at all.
No, you're talking about the concept of what they're promoting.
What they're trying to,
for us in South Bend either. Parts of California on fire. Right here in Florida, they're talking about sea level rise. Well, in Indiana, I had to activate the emergency operations center of our city twice in less than 2 years. The first time was a 1,000-year flood, and the next time was a 500-year flood. This is not just happening on the Arctic ice caps. This is happening in the middle of the country, and we've got to be dramatically more aggressive moving forward. Now, here's what very few people talk about. First of all, rural America can be part of the solution instead of being told they're part of the problem. With the right kind of soil management and other kind of investments, rural America could be a huge part of how we get this done. And secondly, we've got to look to the leadership of local communities. There's networks of mayors and cities from around the world who have come together, not even waiting for our national...
Time. So, no, what they were talking about Roe versus Wade, though, like me and Ben had talked about before in the past, Roe, the lady that got that whole thing to go through later, it came out years later. She was kind of, I don't know if you want to say born again Christian or just got to a point where she's, I can't lie no more. I was like duped into doing this whole thing to be this Roe versus Wade, this whole thing. And she, and her later in life, she was really upset. Like she didn't want that law in existence no more. She wanted it reversed. She didn't think it was right. She said she made up the whole story of rape and whatnot, I guess, or it didn't happen exactly like she said. So I'm not, I don't know enough. I'll have to look into that, but look into yourself, actually. It's just a side bit of information that even the owner of the name of the bill didn't believe in anymore. She said it was a lie. Now, I mean, her story could be true, the whole story of being raped, and then I need to have the right to be able to, that's a true scenario. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that she said it never happened to her. So the actual person that got it to go through.
The worst polluters in CO2 is China, is the United States, and then it's concrete and it's
talking about
and
pollution.
Beyond that, I think we've got to recognize that only by bringing people together, businesses, nonprofits, and we can't demonize every business. We've got to bring them together to be part of this thing, because ultimately, if we're not able to do that, we will be doomed to failure. We have no way of doing this.
This is like this guy's first guy talking. Let him talk.
Vice President Biden, on the issue of how you do this.
These newbies are like, what do you think? Yeah, okay, you're good. No, I have a little bit more I want to add.
Climate change. But if we're honest, many Republicans, including the president, are still not sure if they believe it is even a serious problem. So, are there significant ways you can cut carbon emissions if you have to do it with no support from Congress?
The answer is yes. Number one, in our administration, we built the largest wind farm in the world, the largest solar energy facility in the world. We drove down the price, competitive price of both of those renewable sources. I would immediately insist that we, in fact, build 500,000 recharging stations throughout the United States of America, working with governors, mayors, and others, so that we can go to a full electric vehicle future by the year 2020, or by the year 2030. I would make sure that we invested $400 million in new science and technology to be the exporter, not only of the green economy, but economy that can create millions of jobs. But I would immediately join the Paris climate accord. I would up the ante in that accord, which it calls for, because we make up 15% of the problem. 85% of the world makes up the rest. And so we have to have someone who knows how to corral the rest of the world, bring them together, and get something done like we did in our administration.
Senator Sanders, I want to give you 30
One
seconds
world order, folks.
Look, the old ways are no longer relevant. The scientists tell us we have 12 years before there is irreparable damage to this planet. This is a global issue. What the President of the United States should do is not deny the reality of climate change, but tell the rest of the world that instead of spending $1.5 trillion on weapons of destruction, let us get together for the common enemy, and that is to transform the world's energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. The future of the planet rests on us doing this.
This one. Hold on, I was looking for that one. Hello.
You all want to weigh in on. Hold on a moment.
The Republican Party.
Hold one moment.
Just trust us on
The fact
this.
that somebody
We're
has
gonna-
a younger body doesn't mean you don't have old ideas.
No, we didn't do it.
John Kennedy
Real
did
new
not say, I have a plan to get a man to the moon, and so we're going to do it, and I think we can all work together, and maybe we can get a man on the moon. John Kennedy said, by the end of this decade, we are going to put a man on the moon. Because John Kennedy was back in the day when politics included the people, and included imagination, and included great dreams, and included great plans. And I have had a career not making the political plans, but I have had a career harnessing the inspiration and the motivation and the excitement of people, masses of people. When we know that when we say we are going to turn from a dirty economy to a clean economy, we're going to have a Green New Deal. We're going to create millions of jobs. We're going to do this within the next 12 years because I'm not interested in just winning the next election. We are interested in our grandchildren.
All right, we're going to sneak in a break in a minute, but before we go, I'm going to go down the line here, and I'm asking you, please, for one or two words only. All right?
One or two words only,
Really?
please.
President Obama in his first year wanted to address both health care and climate. And he could only get one signature issue accomplished. It was, obviously, health care. He didn't get to do climate change. You may only get one shot, and your first issue that you're going to push, you get one shot that it may be the only thing you get passed. What is that first issue for your presidency? Eric Swalwell, you're first.
For Parkland, for Orlando, for every community affected by gun violence, ending gun violence.
Senator Bennett.
He took
Climate
mine.
change and the lack of economic mobility Bernie talks about.
Senator Gillibrand.
Passing a family bill of rights that includes a national paid leave plan, universal pre-K, affordable daycare, and making sure that women and families can thrive in the workplace no matter who they are.
Oh, I like that. Okay,
Senator
Harris. Then. So passing a middle class and working families tax cut,
That's one.
DACA, guns.
There you go.
I'm giving you credit for the first thing you said, the tax.
All the above.
Senator Sanders, first thing.
The premise that there's only one or two issues out there. This
I'm not saying
country
there isn't one or
faces
two.
enormous crises.
Senator
we
Sanders.
need a political revolution. People have got to stand up.
Political
and take on the special
revolution.
interest. We can transform
88 miles an
this country.
hour.
Vice President Biden, your first issue, Mr. Vice President.
I think you're so underestimating what Barack Obama did. He's the first man to bring together the entire world, 196 nations, to commit to deal with climate change immediately. So I don't.
Oh, that was a word or two. One word or two.
Is make sure that
He
we
gets the whole world.
defeat Donald Trump.
Okay.
Period.
Oh,
Mayor
gosh.
Buttigieg, your first priority, your first issue as president that you were going to block and tackle.
We've got to fix our democracy before it's too late. Get that right. Climate, immigration, taxes, and every other issue gets better.
Mr. Yang.
I would pass a $1,000 freedom dividend for every American adult starting at age 18, which would speed us up on climate change, because if you get the boot off of people's throats, they'll focus on climate change much more clearly.
Governor Hickenlooper?
This guy's.
I would do a collaborative
These
approach
people,
to climate
who
change,
are they? I didn't know
and
they were
I
up
would
there.
pronounce it well before the election to make sure we don't re-elect the worst president in American history.
And Ms. Williamson
My
with the
first
last
call
word.
is to the Prime Minister of New Zealand. who said that her goal is to make New Zealand a place where it's the best place in the world for a child to grow up. And I will tell her girlfriend you were so on, because the United States of America is going to be the best place in the world for a child to grow up.
Thank you.
It is
you guys
now.
were close with the short, at least it was shorter
No, they weren't.
responses.
Not at all.
All right.
No, they weren't. Not
We're going to
at all.
take a quick break. We'll be right back with these candidates right
All
after
right, we're
this.
going to take a quick break, too. We'll be right back with the candidates after That's hilarious.
Oh, such
Hilarious.
professionalism. Such professionalism, man, I'm telling you.
I guess we can stick it out for this last 20 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Good for it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
What are you guys thinking out there? Let's, let me see here. It's got about a little over 700 in the room. Having a good time, they said.
Good.
They all want to know. They're asking, Woodman, who are you voting for up there?
Up there? I'm sorry. Not quite my cup of tea, whoever that was. Hate to disappoint you.
Ooh, I see Angela Beck found her way into the room from an email. Yep, a random person said, hey, I didn't see your show. And I said, it's on right now. It's not too late to join in. So, yes, we're doing round two. People are having a hard time finding it. They didn't get the alerts. Always happens that way. It always happens that way, folks.
Oh, yeah, I like my hat. I'm sorry, I just love it, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it raises a lot of eyebrows when you walk down the street wearing it, believe me, folks. Yeah, it sure does.
Let me see here.
Period. They all had honeymoons. Trump's honeymoon, he couldn't even crack 50%. So already we see a lower ceiling for Trump than we've seen with past presidents. But that comes with a flip side.
So what do you, let me see here if there's any.
He's talking about Trump's average approval rating is better than everybody else's. The average.
The average. Yeah, that was the same one playing last night, I think.
Yeah, it was, exactly.
It was like their in-betweener video or something. 3352. So the last couple of Q posts for God and Country, Patriots Fight, that came at 4:34 p.m. this afternoon, folks. About, like I said, 16:34. Has the stage been set? A couple minutes before that one. Future comms. Looks like they got all this pre-stage stuff going on. Some code here on the ready. And then at 4:23 here, we had Be Ready. So, pretty interesting. It'll be an interesting next few days for sure.
You know it. You know it. Well, this whole thing up until the election time is really going to be kind of strange. It'd be the first time in our history that 23, 24 Democrats basically against one Republican, you know.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Trump was one of the big reasons his opponent, Hillary Clinton, by Election Day 2016.
And all the things President Trump's been doing for the country, and they're not even going to go ahead and recognize it, you know.
Oh, no.
In 2020,
No.
I think it's the most horrible time in the world right now.
as Clinton was in 16.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Guess they don't know what the meaning of positive tariffs mean by any chance, I guess. Maybe they don't like the idea of the country actually starting to get on their own 2 feet for a change. You know, or maybe they don't like the idea of actually going down to gold and silver standards, you know.
Oh, yeah.
The debate. What a debate. Holy cow. It's an argument between 10 people. Constant argument between 10 people. I like the idea they all complain about certain things, but they don't say exactly how they're going to go ahead and fix
Fix
the
it.
issue either.
It's the same old story.
Right.
All right, we'll listen to a few bit more. We'll carry on here for the next 20 minutes, folks, or so. I think it's about 20, 25 minutes.
Weapon in America, and it should be mandatory. How do you envision that working, especially in states where gun rights are a strong flashpoint?
Keep your pistols, keep your rifles, keep your shotguns, but we can take the most dangerous weapons from the most dangerous people. We have the NRA on the ropes because of the moms, because of the Brady Group, because of Giffords, because of March for Our Lives. But I'm the only candidate on this stage calling for a ban and buyback of every single assault weapon in America. I've seen the plans of the other candidates here. They would all leave 15 million assault weapons in our communities. They wouldn't do a single thing to save a single life in Parkland. I'll approach this issue as a prosecutor. I'll approach it as the only person on this stage who has voted and passed background checks, but also as a parent of a generation who sends our children to school where we look at what they're wearing so we can remember it in case we have to identify them later. A generation who has seen thousands of black children killed in our streets, and a generation who goes to the theater and we actually look where the fire exits are. We don't have to live this way. We must be a country who loves our children more than we love our guns.
Senator Sanders, a Vermont newspaper. Senator Sanders, a Vermont newspaper recently released portions of an interview you gave in 2013 in which you said, quote, "My own view on guns is everything being equal, states should make those decisions."
No.
Has your thinking changed since then? Do you now think there's a federal role to play?
That's a mischaracterization of my thinking.
It's a
Look,
quote of
we
you.
have a gun crisis right now. 40,000 people a year are getting killed. In 1988, Rachel,
That's a
when it wasn't
mischaracterization of what I said. That's a quote from you, sir.
of banning assault weapons, and in fact lost that race for Congress. I have a D- voting record from the NRA. And I believe that what we need is comprehensive gun legislation that, among other things, provides universal background. We end the gun show loophole. We end the straw man provision. And I believed in 1988, and I believe today.
Why would you
that
leave
assault
15 million
weapons are weapons from the military, and that they should not be on the streets of America.
Your plan leaves them on the streets. You leave 15 million on the streets.
We banned the sale and distribution, and that's what I believe for many years.
Will you buy them back?
If people want to buy, if the government wants to do that, and people want
you're
to
going to be the government, will you buy them back?
Yeah.
Senator Harris, we're going to give you 30 seconds.
Thank you. I think your idea is a great one, Congressman Swalwell, and I will say that there are a lot of great ideas. The problem is Congress has not had the courage to act, which is why when elected President of the United States, I will give the United States Congress 100 days to pull their act together, bring all these good ideas together, and put a bill on my desk for signature. And if they do not, I will take executive action, and I will put in place the most comprehensive background check policy we've had. I will require the ATF to take the licenses of gun dealers who violate the law, and I will ban by executive order the importation of assault weapons. Because I'm going to tell you, as a prosecutor, I have seen more autopsy photographs than I care to tell you. I have hugged more mothers who are the mothers of homicide victims, and I have attended more police officer funerals. It is enough. It is enough. There have been plenty of good ideas from members of the United States Congress. There's been no action. As president, I will take action.
Mayor Buttigieg, I want to bring you in on this, sir. A lot of discussion about assault rifles that are often shorthanded as military-style weapons. You are the only person on this stage tonight with military experience as a veteran of the Afghanistan war. Will military families, does that inform your thinking on this view? Do you believe that military families or America's veterans will, at large, have a different take on this than the other Americans who we've been talking about and who Congressman Swalwell is appealing to with his buyback program?
Yeah, of course, because we trained on some of these kinds of weapons. Look, every part of my life experience informs this. Being the mayor of a city where the worst part of the job is dealing with violence, we lose as many as were lost at Parkland every 2 or 3 years in my city alone. And this is tearing communities apart. If more guns made us safer, we'd be the safest country on earth. It doesn't work that way. And common sense measures like universal background checks can't seem to get delivered by Washington, even when most Republicans, let alone most Americans, agree it's the right thing to do. And as somebody who trained on weapons of war, I can tell you that there are weapons that have absolutely no place in American cities or neighborhoods in peacetime, ever.
Vice President Biden, 30 seconds.
A real 30 seconds?
A real 30 seconds.
Okay. I'm the only person that's beaten the NRA nationally. I'm the guy that got the Brady bill passed, the background checks, number one. Number two, we increased that background check during the Obama-Biden administration. I'm also the only guy that got assault weapons banned, and the number of clips in a gun banned. And so, folks, look, and I would buy back those weapons. We already started talking about that. We tried to get it done. I think it can be done, and it should be demanded that we do it, and that's a good expenditure of money. And lastly, we should have smart guns. No gun should be able to be sold unless your biometric measure could pull that trigger. It's within our right to do that. We can do that. Our enemy is the gun manufacturers, not the NRA. The gun manufacturer.
Vice President,
but the NRA is taking orders from the gun manufacturer.
Lester Holt has our next question. Lester, take it away.
All right, Chuck, this is a question from our viewers. We put some suggestions that asked maybe they could share some. Here's one that came from Kathleen from Canby, Oregon, who writes, many fear the current administration has inflicted irrevocable harm on our governing institutions and norms, and in the process, on our reputation abroad. The question is, what do you see as important early steps in reversing the damage done? And we'll put this one to Senator Bennett.
Thank you very much. What an excellent question. First of all, we have to restore our democracy at home. The rest of the world is looking for us for leadership. We have a president who doesn't believe in the rule of law. He doesn't believe in freedom of the press. He doesn't believe in independent judiciary. He believes in the corruption that he's brought to Washington, D.C., and that is what we have to change, and that's why everybody is up here tonight, and I appreciate the fact that they're up here for that reason. Second, we've got to restore the relationships that he's destroyed with our allies, not just in Europe. He flew to the G20 last night and attacked Japan, Germany, and a third ally of ours without saying anything about North Korea or Russia. And when you've got a situation where you have a president who says something happened in the Straits of Hormuz and the whole world doesn't know whether to believe it or not, that is a huge problem when it comes to the national security of the United States of America.
This is a perfect
and we
time.
need to change that.
Thank you, Senator Bennett. This is a perfect time for me to do another one of these down the line. And this is what this question is, which is, you're going to have to you're likely going to have to reset a relationship between America
she sent a super chat,
and another country or entity.
Come get them, buddy. Good luck.
President,
Talk about the guns.
Perhaps because of some relationship that you just mentioned about President Trump. What is the first relationship you like to reset as president? I'm going to go down the line, and I'll start with Ms. Williamson.
Well, one of my first phone calls would be to call the European leaders and say, we're back. Because I totally understand how important it is that the United States be part of the Western Alliance.
I'm trying to get one or two words here. It's
we got you, Chucky.
Talk about constant engagement. And I think the first country I would go to, and I understand they've been cheating and stealing intellectual property, would be China. Because if we're going to deal with public health pandemics, if we're going to deal with
nice one or two words there, buddy.
You've got to have relationships with everyone.
Follow direct.
A couple more things before we go to another break, Mr. Yang.
China, we
He's
need
only
to
had
cooperate
2
with them
words
on
total.
climate change, AI, and other issues. North Korea.
Thanks for the quickness. Mayor Buttigieg.
We have no idea which of our most important allies he will have pissed off worse between now and then. What we know is that our relationship with the entire world needs to change. And it starts by modeling American values.
Nice one or two words there, buddy.
I'm trying to be quick.
Real nice there,
NATO will fall
Buttigieg.
apart if he's elected 4 more years as the single most consequential alliance in the history of the United States.
Senator Sanders.
That's way more.
It's not one country. I think it is rebuilding trust in the United Nations and understand that we can solve conflicts without war, but with diplomacy.
Senator Harris.
All the members of the NATO alliance.
Senator Gillibrand.
President Trump is hell-bent on starting a war with Iran. My first act will be to engage Iran to stabilize the Middle East and make sure we do not start an unwanted, never-ending war.
Senator Bennett, quickly.
She must not have seen that one clip. You know.
About how to deal with the
Raising the roof.
First act in foreign policy, we're breaking up with Russia and making up with NATO.
Thank you all. Thank you all. We have
Thank you all. Thank you
last
all.
question for Vice President Biden.
NATO.
Tonight. You have made your decades of experience in foreign policy a pillar of your campaign. But when The time came to say yes or no on one of the most consequential foreign policy decisions of the last century. You voted for the Iraq war. You have since said you regret that vote. But why should voters trust your judgment when it comes to making a decision about taking the country to war the next time?
Because once Bush abused that power, what happened was we got elected after that.
He
I made
skipped a
sure
couple.
President
Once
turned to me and
Bush.
said, Joe, get our combat troops out of Iraq. I was responsible for getting 150,000 combat troops out of Iraq, and my son was one of them. I also think we should not have combat troops in Afghanistan. It's long overdue. It should end. And thirdly, I believe that you're not going to find anybody who has pulled together more of alliances to deal with what is the real stateless threat out there. We cannot go it alone in terms of dealing with terrorism. So I'd eliminate the act that allowed us to go into war and not the AUMF, and make sure that it could only be used for what its intent was, and that is to go after terrorists, but never do it alone. That's why we have to repair our alliances. We put together 65 countries to make sure we dealt with ISIS in Iraq and other places. That's what I would do. That's what I have done.
Yeah, you've done it. You've done it all. Thank you. We've cut you off. Here's what I will say is Obama, his promises running to shut down Gitmo, to stop the unwarranted surveillance on Americans, the unwarranted surveillance and wiretapping on Americans. He talked about Gitmo, shutting it down, and pulling all troops out and stopping all wars. We know he created more wars. He didn't pull out all the troops. He never shut down Gitmo, and he abused the spying. He took it to a whole nother level. So let's get real.
I will do everything I can to prevent a war with Iran, which would be far worse than disastrous war with Iraq.
Senator Sanders, thank you.
All right, guys. Informed consent of the American people.
Good news is you get more time to talk, but I have to sneak in one more break.
Be right back.
Be right back.
That's the best news all night.
Yeah, best news we've heard all day. Yep.
Sons of bitches, they lying up there, man. Oh, hope and change, hope and promises, Gitmo's gowned, unwarranted surveillance on you. He took it to all new levels. It's a good thing they didn't shut down Gitmo and Trump redid it.
They're all on board on their own program, but the problem is they don't know what the program is.
Trump has tweeted. Trump is watching this as well with all of us. But here, he just tweeted this. All Democrats just raised their hands for giving millions of illegal aliens unlimited health care. How about taking care of American citizens first? That's the end of that race.
Yes, indeed.
What do you guys think about that? What do you think about those apples? I mean, unbelievable. Unbelievable, these people. Let me see here. We'll go to Trump.
Yeah, about 90% of what they're complaining about is all Democratic-based, sponsored, however you want to look at it, That is the way. Think about it. President Trump's been trying to change a lot of stuff from what Dem's been doing in the last, 12, 16 years,
They've had a lifetime to do this shit,
Yeah,
a lifetime to do this shit. Now they're all about it. We're going to get on it. We've been waiting. So all Democrats just raised their hands for giving millions of illegals unlimited health care. How about taking care of American citizens first? I love that. I will retweet that just as it is. Did I get in there? There we go. Great to be back in Japan 2 hours ago. So, all right. Well, there was a couple of new texts from the old POTUS. All right, so we didn't get to any phone calls tonight, but again, we'll do some more live shows here soon. We'll wrap it up here. They're going to come back. There's only about 8-10 minutes left, if that.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, by the time they get back from this commercial, there's going to be 8 to 9 minutes left.
I don't know how anybody watching this debate can actually find out what was really being said, because they talked over each other probably 70% of the time, you know. I mean,
some of these people never got a chance to talk, so you see where they're at with their own.
Well, they focus on certain people, that's for sure.
That's right.
For our leadership. I'm a congressman, but also a father of a 2-year-old and an infant. When I'm not changing diapers, I'm changing Washington. Most of the time, the diapers smell better.
Whatever.
Most of the time, the diapers smell better. Well,
I found a Washington that doesn't work for people like you and me. It's made of the rich and the disconnected. I was the first in my family to go to college and have student loan debt. And so I have led the effort to elect the next generation of members of Congress. And we have a moment to seize. This is a can-do generation. This is the generation that will end climate chaos. This is the generation that will solve student loan debt. And this is the generation that will say enough is enough and end gun violence. This generation demands bold solutions. That's why I'm running for president.
Congressman, thank you.
I think there's a diaper needs changing.
We haven't talked more tonight about how we're going to beat Donald Trump. I have an idea about Donald Trump.
Diapers
Donald Trump is
anymore.
not going to be beaten just by insider politics talk. He's not going to be beaten just by somebody who has plans. He's going to be beaten by somebody who has an idea what this man has done. This man has reached into the psyche of the American people, and he has harnessed fear for political purposes. So, Mr. President, if you're listening, I want you to hear me, please. You have harnessed fear for political purposes, and only love can cast that out. So sir, I have a feeling you know what you're doing. I'm going to harness love for political purposes. I will meet you on that field. And, sir, love.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Thank you. Senator Bennett.
That was from left field, I tell you.
My mom and her parents came to the United States to rebuild their shattered lives. In the only country that they could. 300 years before that, my parents' family came searching religious freedom here. The ability for one generation to do better than the next is now severely at risk in the United States, especially among children living in poverty like the ones I used to work for in the Denver public schools. That's why I'm running for president. I've had 2 tough races in Colorado by bringing people together, not by making empty promises. And I believe we need to build a broad coalition of Americans to beat Donald Trump, end the corruption in Washington, and build a new era of American democracy and American opportunity. This is going to be hard to do, but it's what our parents would have expected. It's what our kids deserve. I hope you'll join me in this effort. Thank you.
Thank you.
Governor Hickenlooper.
I'm a small business owner who brought that same scrappy spirit to make Colorado one of the most progressive states in America. We expanded reproductive health to reduce teenage abortion by 64%. We were the first state to legalize marijuana, and we transformed our justice system in the process. We passed universal background checks in a purple state. We got to near universal health care coverage. We attacked climate change with the toughest methane regulations in the country, and for the last 3 years, we've been the #1 economy in America. You don't need big government to do big things. I know that because I'm the one person up here who's actually done the big progressive things everyone else is talking about. If we turn towards socialism, we run the risk of helping to re-elect the worst president in American history.
Thank you, Governor.
Senator Gillibrand, you have the floor for 45 seconds.
Women in America are on fire. We've marched, we've organized, we've run for office, and we've won. But our rights are under attack like never before by President Trump and the Republicans who want to repeal Roe v. Wade, which is why I went to the front lines in Georgia to fight for them. As president, I will take on the fights that no one else will. I stood up to the Pentagon and repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I've stood up to the banks and voted against the bailout twice. I've stood up to Trump more than any other senator in the U.S. Senate. And I have the most comprehensive approach for getting money out of politics with publicly funded elections to deal with political corruption. Now is not the time to play it safe. Now is not the time to be afraid of firsts. We need a president who will take on the big challenges, even if she stands alone. Join me in fighting for this.
Senator Gillibrand, thank you.
Mr. Yang, you have 45 seconds for your closing.
First, I want to thank everyone who put me on this stage tonight. I am proof that our democracy still works. Democrats and Americans around the country have one question for their nominee, and that is who can beat Donald Trump in 2020? That is the right question. And the right candidate to beat Donald Trump will be solving the problems that got Donald Trump elected and we'll have a vision of a trickle-up economy that is already drawing thousands of disaffected Trump voters, conservatives, independents, and libertarians, as well as Democrats and progressives. I am that candidate. I can build a much broader coalition to beat Donald Trump. It is not left. It is not right. It is forward. And that is where I'll take the country in 2020.
Mr. Yang, thank you.
Senator Harris, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, I just want to leave you with a couple of things. One, we need a nominee who has the ability to prosecute the case against 4 more years of Donald Trump, and I will do that. Second, this election is about you. This is about your hopes and your dreams and your fears and what wakes you up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And that's why I have what I call a 3 a.m. agenda. That is about everything from what we need to do to deliver health care to how you will be able to pay the bills by the end of the month. And when I think about what our country needs, I promise you I will be a president who leads with a sense of dignity, with honesty, speaking the truth, and giving the American family all that they need to get through the end of the month in a way that allows them to prosper. So I hope to earn your support. Please join us at KamalaHarris.org.
Senator, thank you.
Mayor Buttigieg, 45 seconds.
Nothing about politics is theoretical for me. I've had the experience of writing a letter to my family, putting it in an envelope marked just in case, and leaving it where they would know where to find it in case I didn't come back from Afghanistan. I have the experience of being in a marriage that exists by the grace of a single vote on the U.S. Supreme Court. I have the experience of guiding a community where the per capita income was below $20,000 when I took office into a brighter future. I'm running because the decisions we make in the next 3 or 4 years are going to decide how the next 30 or 40 go. And when I get to the current age of the current president in the year 2055, I want to be able to look back on these years and say my generation delivered climate solutions, racial equality, and an end to endless war. Help me deliver that new generation to Washington before it's too late.
Thank you.
Senator Sanders, 45 seconds, the floor is yours.
I suspect people all over the country who are watching this debate are saying, these are good people, they have great ideas.
No,
but how come
you're wrong.
nothing really changes? How come for the last 45 years wages have been stagnant for the middle class?
We think these people are stale, they don't have any good ideas, and if given the opportunity, they will destroy America in the same pattern they've been doing. We can't let it happen.
Oh, yeah.
That's what
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's what we're thinking, fella.
Unless we have the guts to take on Wall Street, the insurance industry, the pharmaceutical industry.
You want to happen to you what's happening to Trump, old man?
And the fossil fuel
You better wise up.
If we don't have the guts to take them
You ain't
on,
had the guts. You've been there for
continue to
40
have
years.
plans, we'll continue to have talk, and the rich will get richer, and everybody else will be struggling.
Thank you, Senator.
And lastly,
Guy, I don't
from
get it,
Vice
Woodman.
President Biden, sir, you have 45 seconds.
Thank you very much.
Unreal.
Biden, the final
I'm gonna lead
word.
this country
Here we go.
because I think
Yeah,
it's
here we
important to
go.
Restore the soul of this nation. This president has ripped it out. It's the only president in our history who has equated racist and white supremacist with ordinary and decent people. He's the only president who has engaged and embraced dictators and thumbed their nose at our allies. I'm secondly running for president because I think we have to restore the backbone of America, the poor and hardworking middle-class people. You can't do that without replacing them with the dignity they once had. Lastly, we got to unite the United States of America as much as anybody says we can't. If we do, there's not a single thing the American people can't do. This is the United States of America.
Andy Griffith.
We can do anything if we're together.
Oh, yeah.
Together. So God bless you all, and may God protect our troops.
Oh, no, he does all that at the end. Go Westville High. You know, it's like nobody's giving a shit, bro. You know, it's like, and I'm gonna plan on doing all kinds of things, and free pencils at the door, and you know, God bless the troops, and go, you know, Westville High football team.
Yeah, believe me, I know what to do. Believe me, I know what to do. I've been doing the wrong thing for 50 years, and I have good running. I got a good running on that, you know.
I've been doing the wrong thing Well, how do you know that you're going to get stuff done there, Biden? Well, I've been doing the wrong thing for 37 years. I figure I'm just going to do the opposite of what I've been doing. That should fix some things, you know?
Yeah.
And Bernie there, you got to stand up against Wall Street, stand up against big corporate. They couldn't, these are the same people that hated Trump. They didn't want Trump in because he couldn't be bought and wasn't part of them. But now you guys are, wanting to venture down that way is what they're acting like. Yep. We're going to try that too. Unbelievable. Yep. Unbelievable. So we're not going to do a whole bunch of these, folks. This is just like a special couple night, follow this first little Democratic debate. Some of these people won't be here in the next month or two. And as we move forward, just more and more of them will disappear for whatever reason you can come up with. So I got 26 times that they mentioned Trump. I think I'll lose a lot more than 26, but that could be about right. I thought maybe 30 or 40. Who knows?
Winter's going to clean all the feces off the floor.
Yeah.
I wonder which one. I wonder which one has the largest pile near their podium. That's what I should say.
Who's in charge of picking up all the smoked shit?
The dung. The dung.
The dung that's left behind. A lot of it.
Man,
a lot of it. All right,
man,
well, we'll
open
shut
her
it down.
mouth, it fell out.
Yeah. Just open up my mouth, and when I got here, it started pouring out. We're gonna shut this one down because I'm pretty tired. It's hot in this room. It's going on 2 hours. We're over 2 hours on the live feed since we kicked off a hair before this started. But folks, what a circus! It is again. Oh, she cut back. They're showing them scramble out of there. It's like your local tent and awning sale at the.
Well, you already know it's going to be Biden. It's already going to be Biden, man. Come on,
They're propping him up. I can call it right now if he's able to make it. There's a few things that could come out on him to just totally shut him down, I think, and be like possibly arrested. I don't know. This whole China deal, he's gonna have to answer up to that. And this is from me to you, Biden. I'm telling you right now, you 38-year passing of the torch, holding on to it for way too long, according to this other fellow Democrat of yours. But you're going to have some questions to answer here, buddy, especially about your son and how he worked over in China on the energy panel, and then you strong-armed them with the backing of the whole U.S., funding, and they're not getting their millions, and, they threatened that you weren't Obama, and you said, just call over there. He'll tell you the same thing I'm telling you. And then you guys fired this attorney general that was going to, and then you act like, well, that was directly to do with your son's. Oh, was my son working on that? Oh, wow. I had no idea. Prove it. That's how you act. Well, we're going to prove it. All right. So Don't forget that. Don't forget that, Biden. We're looking, eyes wide open. Hashtag, you can't run, you can't hide. So
you know it.
All right, let's shut her down, Woodman. We'll get together tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. We'll definitely be some Patriot Hour shows, and we'll probably set up another live stream here for sometime over the weekend. If not, Sunday evening will probably be a good one. We always do. So, brother, we will.
Airborne all the way.
Yes. God bless everybody, and have a great night.
Thank you, Patriots. God bless you.
Each and every one. You don't give up anything to these idiots, by the way. The more you give up, the less you'll never get back, because you can't get anything back from the idiots once you give them up something. So you remember we're talking about First Amendment, Second Amendment, things like that. Don't give nothing up.
Yep.
Hold on to it all.
So it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive.